Hello everyone. My name is Geoff, and I'm officially old, which is presumably. Thank you. Certainly, I am experienced. I've been doing this job for a long time. I started teaching in 1978, so there's a numeracy moment for you. I was actually taught at school by Gary Collins as well, so that's probably scary in itself. Gary and I remind each other of that constantly. I have students who are heads of department now, students who still are teaching now, students who are beginning to teach now. So there's a long history involved with it. So it's really wonderful for me to be here listening to all the advice that people have. Certainly there's a number of things that have resonated with me today, and that's certainly listening to all of the stories. There's been a number of things. So my PowerPoint comes from the heart. It doesn't come from Hattie and Mazzano, from Simon Sinek, from anyone else, because I go through all of that PD, I believe in it, but essentially what it comes down to for me is really what probably I think Chelsea referred to as all of the relationships that people develop. I'm in a difficult situation in that I have the sort of face that people tell things to. They confide in me. If there's a committee at school, they always get me to do it because then they know that people will vote for it. I'm chairman of the LCC because that gets everything through. Students will constantly say to me in class, "So can I tell you something?" And I have to make that immediate decision whether or not I actually answer yes. And I say, "Is it okay if you do tell me?" So I just have to check with them. And that's what happens. People come to me for gossip as well within the school. And that's when I actually have to walk a line, I think, and that's probably my problem. So what I'm presenting to you today is really, in effect, part of that. It's a bit of a moral sermon in many ways, because it's sort of the do's and don'ts without sounding as if I'm trying to convert you to some sort of education religion. But if I could just make a comment on a couple of things that I've seen so far today. Simon's presentations really interested me because in terms of the key takeaways that I got from that was certainly the idea of balance, and that was sort of reinforced later on by the fact there's balance and imbalance within the system from Liam. And there's certainly, because I'm very conservative, I belong to a very conservative school. McGregor has about 1,400 students in there from multicultural background, 70 different languages. We do things by the book. You know, we're certainly not avant-garde. I consider my role, as many people have seen today, as no longer a teacher. When people say to you, "What do you do?" I say, I'm a teacher, but really I'm an inspirer, I'm a motivator, I'm probably a parent, although I fortunately don't have any children of my own. So school is my life. And that becomes a problem, isn't it? Because when we're looking for balance, and I'm certainly at my age, I'm not going to go out and have a kid, thank you, to quote Simon, thank you. But certainly, for me, there's never been a work-life balance. When they say to you, look for that work-life balance, and I say, there is not one. I get to school at 6:20 in the morning, and often I don't leave until, if I leave at 4, I'm doing very well. I attend every single PD that I possibly can. I take debating, public speaking, you name it, I do it. And it's almost on the sort of the fine line of being a martyr, although I don't like to think like that, okay? I try to, in fact, engage a little bit of humility in there as well. But my other great problem is that I'm entirely transparent. In class, I'm transparent plus. If I'm really annoyed with the kids, then they know it. If I'm really excited, then they know it. If I'm really happy, if I'm really depressed, I tell them. If I need a period off when I'm looking glum, then I really play it up. And in order to reinforce that, I exist on hyperbole. It's the only way to do it. probably am a reasonable sort of hod. I try to be. Jared can attest to this since he's actually had a contract at McGregor. I've done the right thing by this year. Well, I think I've done the right thing. I've actually taken 2 Year 8 classes this year. I pepper my life by having 11s and 12s. A few years ago, I had 2 Year 9s. This year, I've got 2 Year 8s, and I think at this point in time of week 3, I'm beginning to regret that decision. Because on the one hand, just like many of you I've heard today, these stories are exactly the same. One of them was that I have my class that I affectionately call the menagerie, because I have 6 SEP kids. I have the 2 worst kids in the school, both called Riley, different spelling. One's a girl, one's a boy, and they can't stand each other. I have another child who will go from 0 to 100, and you don't know what's going to set him off. He has a mind, he's not always there, and you can understand the mix is just extraordinary. And so, on the other hand, then I have the honours class, you know, who are remarkably lovely, but a little bit self-entitled at times. And so, there's an absolute, you know, binary opposites in my life at the moment. So I rely on younger teachers in my school, because I'm used to the senior English course. I'm doing a course for Year 8s that I haven't taught for a while. It's new unit as well, and so I rely on the younger teachers to actually do my work for me. And I just sort of pick and I select and I think it'll be really good, and I say, what are you doing today? And I think fondly of all of those times I used to stay up for hours at night doing all that work, all that preparation, you know, laminating, cutting things out, getting it all right, not having the fans on because everything's going to go all over the place. And it just happens like that. There's nothing else I can do. And so now I feel as if my lessons are boring, where they're bringing in their, you know, their crayons and their colours from either from the compactors or from home. And here I am thinking, my poor students, they're just not getting the elements that I really want to give to them. So that's the sort of the start. The other thing from Simon's presentation was priorities. Because we all have priorities, and you think, my list is getting longer. I exist on lists. I have to have lists. And I tick them off duly just to make myself feel better. It's almost cathartic. But my principal, who is actually a visionary, and that's my last thing on my slides, is that I'm not a visionary. I'm a hard worker. I'm not overly bright, but I work really hard. I get on well with people, and that's sort of my measure of success. But certainly the principal said to us at a senior leadership team meeting, she said, if we're adding all these things to our workload, what are you going to take away? Because her philosophy is less is more. And I thought, I don't know how to answer that. You know, every time they say, do you want to take another debating team? I think, I don't know that I have got time. And as soon as you say those magical words, you don't have time, people always translate it as, well, you're not making time. And I'm thinking, okay, I can only do so many things, but you simply have to try to do it. So, and I still can't work that out. I still can't work out what I'm going to take away. But we have reduced every single year level except for the current, next year's year 12s, to 4 pieces of assessment into line with the new QCE. And for me, that's actually reducing it. Because when I went to the master class for ETAQ last weekend, I was absolutely flabbergasted and amazed that Western Australia still has 10 to 12 pieces of assessment every year. And I thought, when I first started teaching in 1978 at Innisfail State High School, we had 10 or 12 pieces of summative writing and then 15 short answer pieces. I'm thinking that's all we ever did, is just to write. So those students who could write well did well. Those students who didn't write well did not do well. And that's for me been the great change. The other thing is about time, relationships. The other one is that the students teaching that Liam referred to about students teaching him, I use that all the time. It's a great one. I always have one, because when you're old you can do that. You can say, look, I can't do that, I've got arthritis. You can have I said, I'm in the twilight of my teaching years. I said, look, you're going to have to do healthcare and bring me packages in the nursing home. You can exploit all of those techniques, including that one who said, can you remind me exactly how we did that again? What does analyse exactly mean? I've forgotten the senior moment as you're moving around. And you think, okay, I'm checking for understanding, I'm doing my job here. But I'm sure it's a means. So here we go. So how to take control of your career from me. So there's my context. That's what I grew up with as a child. I'm thinking, yes, I had slates when I was in year one. I did move to pen and paper. And then obviously all the technology has come through now. The next one then is basically, this is what, as a teacher, I certainly started with chalks. If anyone is old enough to know spirit duplicators, and because I'm always there early in the morning, I was always the first one there to pump that wretched spirit duplicator. So all of my trousers had ink stains, purple ink stains over all of them. And then finally, the next one was the OHP, and embarrassingly, we still have overhead transparencies, not projectors, but transparencies at school. And I'm thinking, I shouldn't have bought so many. And finally, now we have data projectors. What have I done? Oh, sorry, I'll have to go back to F5. Thank you, Jeremy. All right. I've just done it again. I'm sorry, Jeremy. There we go. So officially, I'm a Radford product. I was the first person, because I'm 62 years old. I've been a HOD since I was 32. So I've been around for a while. I've taught only in state school systems. But I was the first one where they had no external exams. My parents were absolutely relieved because I was a remarkably nervous child. They're absolutely amazed that I became a teacher. They thought, no, you'll never do it. And so that's what I say to students now who are very nervous. And I take public speaking and I say, look, I was terrible when I was at school. I couldn't do anything. I could barely talk. And so suddenly here we go. So Radford product, TE score, OP score, and now we've moved full circle to ATAR and external exam. And I'm thinking, this is just extraordinary. And I'm thinking, maybe I should have got out before this happened. But I think it's good. I think it is good. Unlike Western Australia, we actually are focusing all of our PD funds on how to teach pedagogy rather than how to teach assessment items. And that's probably the difference for me. So where to start? I think really from the bottom up, and this is from an old person who looks at students, who looks at pre-service teachers, who looks at teachers in the department, and I try to look after them. But I've got teachers on my staff who were late coming to teaching, and they've had to realise, I think, that you do have to start from the bottom up. It doesn't mean to say they don't have bad ideas, but they really have to learn from other people. And so I'm really fortunate in that I've got people who have been teaching for a long time, and those people have been teaching for a very short time. I try to do the right thing as a HOD by doubling up. I'm a great believer in trying to maximise timetables. At my school, I'm very fortunate in that I'm able to say who is actually allocated to which class. And then I have a look at the class lists, and if I can make any internal changes, I can do that. I'm a great believer in saying, if anyone who teaches 5 English classes, I absolutely worship you, because it's a huge commitment. But if you were at my school and you had 5 English classes, then I ensure that you have basically 2 double ups. So although you have 5 classes to mark, you actually only have 3 levels of preparation. And that's sort of the golden rule. I'm not sure if I did that to you, Jared, or not. I did. There we go. That's good. And of course, we all know that you're not doing it for the money. This is none. And lack of permanency, people have mentioned it, but I'm going to go on with that one there. And when I retire and people of my ilk retire, then that's going to be probably, in this game, there'll be a floodgate of opportunities for you. And by the way, in the old days when Gary Collins taught me, we did traditional grammar. I grew up with subjects called parsing, synthesis and analysis. It's all a bit scary now. Derivation. And of course, I can use all those in the classroom. I can walk in and speak for 75 minutes and do activities based on 10 words. extraordinary that you can do that. And now combined with what we can, with the other techniques that we can offer, like images, for example, and you always have pictures on everything. You can tell I've been having year 8s this year. I've got to have a picture for that to keep them amused. So my tips, first of all, is accept and embrace changes and opportunities, because it's going to happen. In my lifetime, that has happened already. And you value relationships, and that's a really important one, the valuing relationships. Experienced teachers can actually help you. So that idea of mentoring, that, Chelsea, did you speak about mentoring? I think you did, yes. The mentoring and relationships is really important because they know the system, and they can give you valuable advice. They can help you get through things. And I know at McGregor, certainly, we're really, really good. We share resources. We have everything provided, we share. I get a bit cranky if, number one, don't empty the dishwasher first of all, or clean up the kitchen, but that's my job as well. Or they don't share resources. If they keep it to themselves, then I will say, well, where is it? Beginning teachers, as I said to you, offer appealing and innovative approaches, and they share strategies and resources, and that's the sort of the culture that has to be developed within the school. So it's interesting because having taught at Palm Beach, Currumbin, as well as I know people from Ipswich and people from other schools, and that's the great advantage about networking as well. Coming to PD has been just wonderful for me. But developing rapport with other teachers is really important. You get on well with people. I smile a lot at school so that I know, and generally I'm happy at school because I really like to be there. I'm positive and I'm enthusiastic. Kids often, I've overheard kids say, that guy smiles a lot. And I'm thinking, yes, hello. And I'm the sort of teacher who will come along and I won't stomp along the veranda, but I'll walk in, I'll look into the windows and I'll wave to kids. I'm thinking, oh my God, I've just ruined that lesson. And then I sort of scuttle away and thinking, okay, I'll see you later. That sort of thing. You don't want to be in my department, I know. But building connections with students to maximise links and results. I'm a great believer in actually developing that rapport and those relationships with students, because that's where you inspire. Because what they want to do, I think they come to school to feel supported, possibly not loved, but certainly supported. That menagerie class, just like someone actually offers bribes, we have every second Friday, period 4 on a Friday, year 8, menagerie. It's called Diabetes Day. Alan's Lollipops is the answer to everything, and I have to survive it, so I've got them all mapped out. And then the other one at the bottom there is networking. You've got to network. I go to this is probably the fewest number of people that I know in any auditorium here today. Because when I go to another ETAQ things, you get to know people. You get to know where jobs are, what happens, who's involved, what you're doing. People will say, I'll email you my work program, I'll email you this task, and you think, my life is better, this is a great resource. And then suddenly your collection grows and you think, okay. And then suddenly you put it at our school onto G Drive, which our G Drive just looks like an absolute pandemonium, it's a mess. And I always keep on saying, and I had the messiest room in the school, I'm very neat and tidy by nature, but I do not have time to clean up my room because there's just so many things to do. So other teachers, community groups. Now, people have said this as well, and this is a bit moralising. You have to work hard because teachers are paid. They are paid to do it, and so really, you really have to do that commitment. And I think that certainly English teachers are not so much undervalued, but you work so hard. English teachers work so hard in terms of what I have noticed with other departments, and I know that sounds a bit sus. Become indispensable. Because, I can tell you the stuff, I can tell you people. They will look at just like we do a data place map on students. Sometimes I sit there and I think, I can do a data place map on all my staff. I can tell you exactly what they're good at, what they're not good at, which classes they would suit and which ones they're not. And so that knowing that information is really handy. And if they ask me, I'll tell them. I said, no, you won't be able to do that one. I'm very honest with them. Sometimes that gets me into trouble. The next one is involvement is crucial. Now, look, because I'm obsessed with this, because for me, debating is the greatest skill ever. And then I used to take a lot of debating teams, and you know, it's like everything, I probably was burnt out. I had a bad year a number of years ago, and I've become resilient. I've come back from that, and I've started debating again. But in terms of public speaking, Lions competitions, I'm an inveigler as well. I mean, I've inveigled my way into 7 Lions Youth of the Year clubs. I enter them, and because I say to the kids, you come from McGregor, you have to be reliable and responsible. I said, that's what we are known for. You have to show up, you have to be there. And there's that sort of, that pressure. And I'll come back to that word finally, is the word leverage. You need to gain leverage. And as a HOD, I know how I gain leverage over students, but I also gain leverage over staff as well. Sorry, Jared, you probably don't want to hear that. But it's true, that's what it is. And it's not so much power that Liam was talking about, but I like the word leverage because you need students to work for you. And so establishing those relationships in really tough schools like Ipswich, where a woman from our school went to Ipswich, I think she's still there, and she gave up halfway through and then took some time off and then went back. But Ipswich is exactly the type of school like Morayfield, where when I was there, you have a really tough time for the first year, and then suddenly the kids begin to love you, and then they begin to protect you, and you think, oh, this is all right, I'm doing okay, and then it's clear sailing. But you've got to do your apprenticeship with them before they will accept you. So, debating, public speaking, writing competitions is the other one. And then, of course, Simon is the opposition because Kelvin Grove don't do so well in the ETOQ writing competition. And it's just lovely. It is just lovely, you know. I mean, we actually have another competition called the Fascinate Literary Competition, and I'm in a position where, I'm sounding like a bit of a manipulator here. I don't mean to be, but we actually get our students to actually judge that. We've in fact encouraged, I always use that word, we don't force students to do anything, I actively encourage them to do it. That's the leverage. As soon as they hear the term active encouragement, they think, oh hell, I've been chosen. And the students actually, they actually judge other students' work that have been submitted, primary schools as well. So that's sort of not quite as exciting, I think, as what the Kelvin Grove school does, what Simon does, but it's still part of that idea where we're actually using students to actually look at and review other people's work. We have students from our school who enter, but they go via a central point through the local PCYC, and they number all of the entries, so we don't know whose work that is. I had someone one year who won, and I had no idea it was her work. I didn't even recognise her style. I'm thinking, okay, that's probably good. And I don't have time to read all of them. The students have to mark it. Okay, and the last one is to be visible in your school. I think you need to be visible. You need to have that sort of almost like, you know, a boutique sort of niche sort of style so that people, they know that you are the go-to person to do that. And I think that's a really hard one to do. I know that in my school that I have teachers who are drama teachers who cannot get jobs as drama teachers, and so it's default. You know, English is the default position. And they say, can I have drama next year? And I'll say, let me think about it, and I say no. I said, I'll try, but there aren't enough drama teachers, classes around for them. All right, so now this one here is all about power structure, and I acknowledge in schools there is a power structure, but my approach to power structure is certainly different, because having been in the system for a long time, I've been at McGregor for 23 years, so that makes me, and I'm not the eldest on staff, but, well, that might be close. I haven't been at the school the longest. But for me, this is the power structure within any school, is that the reprographics people always have the most power. They're the ones you have to be super nice to. The admin assistants, They're the next ones. Followed by, certainly, the cleaners, the janitor and the groundsman. The cleaners will do everything for you. The canteen staff. And we have a coffee lady now at our school. This is just supersonically great. In the last couple of years since our principal's come, we now actually have coffee we can buy on site. It's just changed our lives. They make a fortune out of us. I'm sure they're going to build a new building based on the coffee that the staff have built. Staff members, and I put them back there, including HODs. I thought I'd better include myself in that one. And the last one is, eventually admin. And now, the last slide here is certainly about that leverage. I think it's leverage. Now, if you've got time and you have vision, that's just really lovely. I'm really lucky in that my current principal, has vision. She knows the direction of the school. She has it all mapped out beautifully. I cannot control it. She looks at it and she can tell you exactly what she's doing. She speaks at 100 miles per hour, even faster than me. And she's got it all mapped out. And her principal's assembly, she's got them mapped out for the next 3 years, and she runs through them, the scenarios, and you're thinking, my goodness me. And she has the vision. I just simply plod along. Thank you very much.